Right, folks, there you heard George Harrison. He's sitting here in the BPFO. You might be kind enough to introduce yourself, actually.
Yeah, hello, I'm George Harrison.
Well, for people who may not be entirely familiar with that name, no Lord knows where they've been, could you sort of describe to them what this chap George Harrison does, who he is, and that kind of carry on?
Like sort of what's my line kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I need a shovel for that. No, a shovel. Yeah. I dig roads up and lay gas mains.
Right.
Basically, that's what I do.
And apart from that, what do you do?
In my spare time, I have a film company called Handmade Films.
Right.
And I occasionally write a tune, make a record.
And twang along
On the old guitar.
And how long is it since you've you made a record, George?
It's I just made one this year.
Right.
You mean before this one?
Yeah.
I think it was 5 years since I put the last album out.
And why was that? I mean, it's a heck of a long time, isn't it?
It isn't really when you're busy. 5 years. I mean, can you remember what you were doing 5 years ago? I mean, it doesn't seem that long.
No.
There's a lot of stuff happening in between. I wrote a lot of songs. And I put them, I recorded a lot of songs just in a sloppy sort of demo fashion. And as I say, we've been making some movies. I've done one or two little things here and there, and that Carl Perkins program.
Right. How did you feel about that, going on that thing with Carl Perkins?
I felt very nervous about it, but I wanted to do it because Carl is such a sweet fellow. He's such a lovely man, and obviously, he influenced me a great deal when I was young. I was so into his music. Well, I still am. I just got all his old Sun record originals on a CD now. And they still sound great.
Right.
Well, it's one for the money, two for the show.
So was Carl Perkins your first sort of major flash in rock and roll? I mean, do you remember what happened before you said, God, I have to be doing that myself,
Well, there was a lot of things. My dad used to have an old wind-up gramophone that he brought from New York when he was a sailor.
Right.
As were most people from Liverpool were sailors. And this gramophone, he brought a lot of old records from America. And there was a guy called Jimmy Rogers, not the guy who did Honeycomb.
Yeah, the real one.
The real Jimmy Rogers.
The mainline Jimmy Rogers.
And he was just brilliant. And that's the first thing I remember, like that kind of, very rough old recordings on a wind-up gramophone, but, just guitar and voice, basically. Hank Williams, too. I loved him when I was a kid.
Your cheating heart will tell on you.
And then, of course, Skiffle came along, and sounds like the interview for Spinal Tap, right?
Right.
And then my dad bought me this guitar, what was called a Big Ben. And, and I got a guitar. And then there was all that skiffle stuff.
Now this is the story about the Rock Island life.
Donegan influenced us, and all the ones who were left after that, when Skiffle disappeared.
And did you think English rock and roll was crap at the time?
Well, there wasn't any English rock and roll at that time, was there, really?
Oh, during Skiffle?
And then there was a bit started coming out, Tommy Steele, Rock with the Caveman, and then Cliff, and there were some good ones, though, on those old Larry Parnes tours, when Joe Brown used to bring Eddie Cochran over, and what else? There was a great guy called Duffy Power, wasn't it?
Duffy Power, yeah.
And there's some good ones.
And who was the kind of the first American rock and roll star you saw that you went, good Lord?
I can't remember which was the first one. One of the earliest records I remember when I was still a schoolboy was the Del Vikings, Whispering Bells, and the sound of the guitars on that.
Right.
And then, of course, Heartbreak Hotel. I mean, that just came out of somebody's radio and lodged itself permanently in the back of my brain. It's been there ever since. They could die. And Eddie Cochran, he was one person who just blew me away when I actually saw him on the Liverpool Empire with his unwound third string. And he was great because he looked good and he sang good and he was really getting a good guitarist around the time he got killed.
Who cares? Come on, everybody.
All that stuff. Buddy Holly, I wasn't able to see him other than on the London Palladium. Yeah. And when Bill Haley came to Liverpool, I couldn't afford a ticket. It was 15 shillings in them days. That was a lot of money for a schoolboy. I often wondered where Paul McCartney got his 15 shillings from, because he got to see him.
So looking back on all the kind of the Fabs carry on, does it seem like another world?
Yeah, sometimes like another life, like some previous incarnation.
How do you view it now? Is it through a haze or what?
A bit through a haze, but, people don't ever stop talking about it, so it's hard to get too much distance between me and the Beatles.
Do you mind that?
I used to, not like it at all. I wanted to be free of it, in a certain time. Now I learn how to live with it. And also, don't forget, there was a period when the Beatles split up and there was all kinds of court cases and bad vibes and stuff, and that left a sort of bad taste in the mouth for a while. And after the years, it's all cleared up. Everybody's friends again, and it's much easier to think about all the funny things, because there was some hysterical things happened.
What was the best flash out of all of that, if you can remember?
The best?
The best vibe out of all of that?
I suppose in the very early days when we were just rocking on these little clubs, when there was no big deal about the Beatles, when we were just becoming popular, it was just fun. A lot of those old nightclub gigs we played, it was just real fun. And there was a lot of good times, just driving around in the van, going places, and, just all the rough and tumble stuff that happens.
Just rocking out.
Mm.
What's your fave Fab Four record?
I don't know if there is one, really. I kind of like Rubber Soul, that I thought had a real nice vibe to it. And, but I loved Strawberry Fields and The Walrus.
You haven't mentioned one of yours then, specifically?
Well, yeah, I mean, I like some of my old ones. I've just really got back into a couple of them, like I Want to Tell You. It's quite interesting. Right. I mean, they're actually more interesting than I thought they were. And, of course, with the CD coming out of and all the big thing about Sgt. Pepper, well, I checked that out again. And that song of mine on that is pretty far out. I mean, it's such a weird little song, but I'm still pleased about it. Something about it, it's so unique. And B-side of Lady Madonna, it's a pretty obscure, yeah. But I like that because I love that influence with the Indian music. I know it seemed a bit way out at the time, but it certainly was good for me, and there was some interesting sounds in it.
Can I ask you about this? For a while it seemed, if not directly down the line, but by extension, that you were endorsing drugs like smoking dope and taking acid and general sort of mind expansion. Looking back on that now, do you think it was a good move or not?
Well, a lot of people thought that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was the signal for LSD, but I mean, that's an old story that, was being told many times, that it was really a painting Julian had done when he was a little boy in school. He brought it home, and John said to him, "What is that?" And he said, "It's Lucy," who was this little girl who was in his class. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. But we did smoke that stuff in those days, and we certainly did sign a petition in the Times to make it legal.
Right, those when the
I
Stones
think
got
a
busted.
lot of the stuff, I think it was after that, I think a lot of the stuff that happened, or that happens, you know, it's just like when Prohibition was on. You know, I think if they make a big deal out of some stuff, it becomes bigger than, you know, bigger than it actually is. And I think in moderation, you know, you have to have moderation with anything.
Right.
I mean, I think the worst drug of all is alcohol. You know, I mean, it's now people have finally got it to write about in the papers and on the TV and showing that it actually kills more people than heroin. I was fortunate myself never to... I think when I was a kid, I saw a movie about a trumpet player, Chet Baker,
Right.
and was about his heroin addiction. And that, and maybe something else, always made me aware that that thing was just too much. Of course, the other things, the psychedelic drugs, are much different because they don't sort of put your body in a stupor. They sort of catapult you out into the universe. It's a total different perspective. And, you know, those things obviously can be very dangerous too. I'd hate to have some right now because I just don't think I could handle it. But
Can you explain that?
Well, it's hard to explain. It's just...
Do you think it'd be too much, just...
Yeah, you know, there's... I think it just gives you, you know, too many things to think about at once.
And what about your endorsement? You gave a lot of help to the Krishnas. Do you still subscribe to that? I mean, do you still chant and stuff?
Well, the original Swami, the Indian guy who came and set that up, I was quite friendly with. He was called Bhaktivedanta Swami, and he was a lovely man, and what he was teaching was the ancient Vedic way of having God consciousness. There's the way it spread was amazing, I thought, but you know, within that, there's always, within any organization, there's always the problems and the pitfalls, and I think some of them really took advantage of me. I was trying to be generous with them. I made an album with them, and I did numerous things to help them.
You gave them a house, didn't you?
Yeah, got them a temple. I tried to help them in many ways, but then they abused that in many ways. I know people used to write to me saying how they'd, you know, I mean, they'd all be around the airport using my name and stuff like that. And I still have a couple of friends who are some of the original guys who joined, but apart from that, I don't really hang out with them. But the mantra, that thing, that technique which is called japa yoga of chanting, just like, you know, the monks and the Christians do it too, really, but it's just using beads and chanting these ancient mantras.
Like Aum or something?
Well, there's that one, the one that they use all the time is the Hare Krishna mantra. And they do have great effect. And, you know, it's very good. I wouldn't knock that at all. I'm always a bit dubious about organizations, and since the Swami died, it seems to be chaotic with all kinds of guys all thinking they're the gurus. There seems to be, you know, not so much of being humble. I mean, to me, it's not important to be a guru. It's more important just to be, you know, to learn humility. But there seemed to be a big race on to see how many gurus they could have.
So do you ever chant now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I still got my bag of beads, and the beads have got much better over the years. They're really groovy now, polished up.
What about, you played at the Princess Trust with, I mean, we had people like old chums, I suppose, Eric Clapton and Elton John and stuff, but also a lot of new blood, you know.
Yeah.
How did you find that
was
coming
good.
from?
To tell you the
Are you
truth.
not?
No.
But
I do know the Bee Gees have got a new record out.
Which is number one,
Yeah.
or was.
I saw that on a video of that somewhere. And I know Mick's got a new album out. I know Michael Jackson's got a new record. But, you know, as to what is happening out there, I couldn't tell you. I've got a feeling that it's more open now than it's been in, like, over the last 10 years. It got a narrow sort of bandwidth. Now I think it's, you know, there's more variation again.
Well, what did you think when 10 years ago the punk thing happened? I mean, did you think that was a good idea, or were you already divorced from it?
I was a bit divorced from that too, and I checked it out a little bit, but it didn't impress me. You know, we spent all them years trying to get everybody to love each other, and suddenly everybody's spitting on each other. You know, it's not my idea of fun.
Could I ask you a difficult question, if I may? When John, bless him, died, what did that do to your head? I mean, did it mean that you closed the doors even more?
Not really. I was already trying to live try and hold on to some sort of privacy. I think everybody needs to have a bit of space, you know. I mean, if you were just being mobbed and on TV and that all your life, you know, you just turn into a loony. And long before he got shot, I was already just, you know, digging in the garden, planting trees and just trying to not go on television, just have a bit of peace. But what it did was, I think it affected me just probably like anybody who loved him and who, you know, grew up with him or with his music. And, you know, it was a very sad thing, and it didn't really make me feel, it made me wonder about ever getting in situations where there's, you know, fans. Although at the same time you can't blame fans for that. You know, there's one loony in every crowd, I suppose. But I just go on living normally. You know, I don't panic unnecessarily.
What about the concert for Bangladesh? Because it seems to be sometimes overlooked. I mean, long time before Live Aid and everything, that you got together this concert for the starving of Bangladesh. And then the whole thing seemed to go enormously odd in terms of getting the funds actually to the people.
Well, the only problem that we had was that the person who was supposed to be managing us at the time,
A. Klein,
was also a loony. At the time I set up all the band.
Do you mean a loony as well as you guys, or what?
Well, you know, he was just, you know, he didn't take care of business, basically, what it was. And it's very difficult having, after an event, to then try structuring it. And that's basically what happened. They got money, about $4 or $5 million, and then the Internal Revenue in America kept insisting that I'd done it for my own personal gain.
Self-promo or something?
Even though every, you know, the books and records of every dollar were there. And it just meant that money had to go in an escrow account. And for about 8 years, I had lawyers dealing with various people in the IRS in Washington. Every time we got it cleared, there'd be just this one guy kept insisting and insisting. I think in the end, they had to even pay a little bit of money to the IRS just to get them off their back.
Sick, isn't it?
But it was sick, because it was something which, for me, was a gesture to help, you know, based upon Ravi Shankar really being from Bengali. And he just wanted me to help him think of a way to make more than maybe $20,000, which is what he thought he was going to be able to make. Instead, it's made 45 million. But as I say, we did have that period of time where we had the hassle from the IRS, but they've nevertheless got the money, and it keeps on turning over with the video cassette now, and the film gets shown, and there's reorders of the record every so often.
The record's deleted now.
Is it? Well,
yeah.
It's ordered mainly in Canada. I don't think it'll be deleted.
Yeah, I had to get one from a second shop the other day, second-hand shop the other day. I scored one.
Well, that's news to me, because up until a period of a couple of years ago, I was forever signing reorder forms, and they always seem to be reordered through Canada for some reason. Well, it's hard to imagine anything like that would be deleted.
It would seem wrong it should be deleted,
Just idiots
even
they
for the
are.
musical reasons, you
They're
know.
just idiots.
Do you have to deal with complete morons all the time in the sort of the schmuck and roll end of rock and roll?
Unfortunately, we've had our share of them, but these days, you know, I don't really deal with them. There's the manager, and I'm with a company. Well, this record that I've got out now is a record distributed through Warner Brothers, and I have a good relationship with them. The guy in the States who runs, you know, Warner's, called Mo Austin.
Right.
And I think he's about the most decent person I've met in that business. You know, he talks straight and tells you what he thinks, and, you know, it's very different to the situation that the Beatles had with Capitol and EMI, although we did have a good relationship with them for years, but I don't know, they've got another loony running that place now, and he's just so stubborn. He just won't talk about anything. He just won't, you know. So we've had our share of all that, but, you know, you just have to keep on trucking, don't you?
Let's talk about Live Aid, George, but the most magnificent thing. Were you approached to play at that at any time?
Well, I was in America at the time. I think I'd been in Australia, and I was coming back through America, and then I got off the plane in London Airport, and the press said to me, "Are you going to do this concert?" And I didn't even know about it. But I think the day before the concert, I was asked if I wanted to go and sing Let It Be with Paul. But, you know, I didn't know anything about it, and it seemed that they had everybody and their grannies on it anyway. It didn't seem like much difference whether I went on it or not. But I don't know, if I'd have known more about it and had more time to be informed of it, then, you know, maybe I would have done it. But I think it did all right without me.
Because there was this cockeyed story that yourself, Paul and Ringo were going to do something with Julian, which seems to me just totally out of order.
That comes up all the time. I mean, they keep inventing that every 6 months. There's one of those stories.
And what do you think about that?
Well, it's just rumours. I don't think we'll play together. The Beatles certainly can't play again. And I think it's best left as it is, you know.
I'd agree, actually. Let's talk about an old chum of yours, Bob Dylan. I mean, I know you were at the concerts, I saw you there, and then the final night you got up and played. How did you feel about that just coming on unannounced?
Well, I'm not the sort of person who rushes on stage, you know. In fact, a lot of the time I'm real embarrassed going to concerts because everybody seems to want you to, you know, come on, get on the stage, play, when all you want to do is watch the show. But with Bob, I was sitting on the side of the stage, and suddenly about 3 or 4 different people in the road crew started hitting on me, saying, "You got to go on, and I said, no, because I keep thinking if I was in the audience, I don't want to see me coming on, I want to see Bob Dylan. But I could see Jim McGuinn and Tom Petty and them, and they were all looking at me saying, "Come on," and I couldn't stand the idea of them going away thinking, you know, he was a spoilsport or something. So I was with Jeff Lynne at the time, and I said, "Oh, Jeff, looks like I'm on. There's no way I can get out of this, no way out. So I just went on. As luck would have it, it was that Rainy Day Women tune.
Everybody Must Get Stoned.
Which is a bit familiar.
And what was it? You sang a very odd line, something like "They'll stone you when you're 28 years old," and I couldn't figure that out at all.
I don't know. I was just making it up as I went along.
Because you were getting a bit of the hint from Bob to do a bit more, but pulled back.
I don't know. I went to sing with him, and then he just walked away. And then I thought, well, it's daft just standing up here just playing, you know, the guitar riff all night long. I might as well sing a verse. So I waffled my way through one verse, and then I turned back thinking he'd come in again, and he just sort of looked at me with that vacant look he has, and I don't remember what happened after that. I don't know if he sang any more or if
He
it
did,
just
yeah.
ended or what.
How do you feel about him now? Because he seems, and I emphasise as a person who I have an enormous amount of love and respect for, but he seems dazed.
Well,
if not wounded.
He's been on the road for 2 months with, he had dysentery, something bug he got when he was in Israel, and I think considering everything, he's a sort of unique person. He enjoys touring. In fact, he's gone today to New York to rehearse with yet another group.
Wow,
to see how it works out. I don't know. I know one guy, the guitar player, Danny Cooch.
Right.
I don't know who the other guys are, but he's already got 3 more tours lined up, 2 more with Tom Petty and another one with the Grateful Dead. He just likes touring. And, for me, that would kill me. And as you say, Bob does look tired. But, he's always been in control, or seemed to be in control of his own destiny. And what can you say? You just wish him well and hope he goes on and on till he's 99 years old.
Can I ask you, on your new record, on your new album, you have kind of older chums, like Eric Clapton and people like that. Was that a conscious thing because you knew those guys and they're playing and things rather than to go with fresher blood?
I don't know any fresher blood, actually.
Do you not?
Not. I mean, the newest guitar player I know is Gary Moore.
And how do you know him?
I know him because he sort of was a friend of Ian Pace, and Ian Pace from Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And Ian toured with Gary, and then Gary came to live in my neighbourhood, and he's an unbelievable guitar player. I mean, guitar players like him around, it makes me just feel like a skiffler. But there's Ringo suits my music, and I know him. And he's there, he needs to play occasionally. And, these people just happen to be my friends. Like with Eric, there's certain guitar solos on the record which I just think, okay, I could learn a part that'll do, but I hear Eric is natural for that style. And it's good fun just to get him over and get him to play on it. It's good excuse to see each other hang out again, and a great contribution, I think, to the song. So I don't really think of old blood or new blood. I just think of they're just friends or players, people
right.
who just happen to fit. I'm not close to new people. I just don't know many of them.
Let's talk about the world, big subject, right? It seems right now that the age of optimism is severely wounded, and there is this unfortunate thing, this feeling around that we're hurtling towards this dark oblivion.
You talking about my wife again?
Absolutely. I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, at one time everything seemed very beautiful and easy, and now it's the heavy nitty-gritty, a lot of it, isn't it? I mean, it seems that people aren't really enjoying the space between birth and life.
Yeah.
Birth and death.
Is there life after birth?
Right.
Well, yes and no. I think it's not quite as bad this week as it has been, this year, as it's been over the last few years. But you're right. I mean, this was the depressing thing after all the effort the Beatles put in, and not just the Beatles, but the generation. I know people who are not from the 60s generation think that we're all just a bunch of old farts, and, that the psychedelic period was a lot of nonsense, but there was a lot of good things came about, and we spent all that time, creating that mode of love. All you need is love, and trying to get people, a bit more positive. And then the 70s, after about 1972, it just suddenly went weird, didn't it? Heavy metal, the sort of Hitler music of rock and roll.
Like who now?
I just mean generally the heavy, noisy, clattering music, and then the punk spitting and beating on each other kind of music. And I can understand when they say the new generation coming up, they don't have employment and all that. It's probably is true that it does contribute to their feelings, But we've got everybody still making all the bombs and putting the missile sites around. To tell you the truth, I feel like if they do blow us up, there's nothing we can do about it. And if they don't blow us up, there doesn't seem to be that much we can do about it either, because the governments and everybody's still got the money. They still choose to use the money for military and for weaponry, as opposed to building the inner cities, about giving people jobs or detoxifying the oceans or whatever. I mean, it's just it's in a nutshell greed, I think. It all comes down to greed. You know, industry, commerce, and that they just would rather just destroy something in order to sell you electricity. I mean, you know, this is the biggest joke. The guy's now said how nuclear power isn't actually cheaper.
It isn't cheaper.
Now, as we've got it, all these sort of horrible power stations that's, you know, it's unbelievable. You know, it's just like these people who are in control of it just have no hearts, no souls, and they don't care about the people. They just don't seem to care about us. They're just concerned with their own greedy methods of how to get power and accumulate all this wealth and stature.
And is there anything you, I mean, with you've got a few shekels somewhere and you've got a high profile, I mean, is there anything you feel you can do?
Well, I try, you know, in my way, I try to help various people, you know, like Greenpeace and...
Are you a member of Greenpeace?
Yeah.
Fair play to you.
And, you know, I love those people because they just get out there and actually do it. I mean, if I wasn't me, that's the kind of thing I'd like to be, you know, is out there on a ship getting harpooned by Russians and Japanese. You know, I think those people are great. And any of these organizations, you know, are just trying to save the planet, you know, save the world, while it's all, the forests are all crumbling and those that aren't being poisoned are being chopped up to make boxes and newspapers. It's perverse, actually. When you get into it, it makes me want to vomit. But, you know, you just have to pray and just try in your own circle of friends and in your own circle of influence just to be a better person and try and influence good things, too.
And would you give any credence to the idea of those storms that happened in England a little while ago, that it was nature's way of fighting back, because nature's not an inanimate thing?
No, well, that's true. I believe all the, I mean, the worst-struck countries, usually India, you know, if they're not having a monsoon or a tidal wave or something or other, you know. But it is true, the atmosphere that's created, I mean, you can take it from just, say, this room, you know, this room, and the atmosphere is created by us in here. But if you magnify it onto the level of a city or a continent, and you think of all the atmosphere that's being created, I mean, right now, just all this radio and television and satellites, and there's all this madness flying through the air and all these chimneys pouring out smoke and motor cars driving everywhere and people on telephones, you know. I mean, there's just so much disturbance in the atmosphere that the atmosphere, nature, has got to adjust to that. And I think that's what any weather is a result of that, or the shifting of climates because of chopping the rainforests down, or, you know, people seem so stupid. They don't seem to realize that, you know, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
What's your prime concern now in your life, George Harrison? Would it be your family? Would that be the very root of it?
Well, I suppose so. Family, friends, and just trying to keep on keeping on.
How old are your kids now?
Just one boy, 9.
And does he listen to pop music at all?
Well, yeah, ever since, you know, he was a kid, he sort of hears various things. You know, 1 week or 1 year he'll come in doing Walk Like an Egyptian, but this time it's Chuck Berry, you know.
Really? From his dad?
He can't wait, no, because he saw a movie, Teen Wolf, and they played Surfing USA,
Right.
the Beach Boys. So he wanted to hear the Beach Boys. So when he was listening to that, I thought, well, you better listen to Sweet Little 16.
From whence it came.
Yeah. And then he said, would ask me to make him a cassette of all his Chuck Berrys. In fact, after the Prince's Trust, he came to one night of that. And he came backstage and I said, well, what did you think? And he said, you were all right, Dad, but why didn't you do Roll Over Beethoven, Johnny Be Good and rock and roll music?
Are you a happy chap, do you think?
Yeah, I'm okay. You know, sometimes I get depressed for some reason. You know, it's a constant battle, isn't it? You have to consciously make an effort to be happy. And I think, considering everything, I've come along quite nicely. I mean, there's always room for improvement. But, you know, I have a laugh and... you know, I feel quite good about things.
Do you have any ambitions left? Is there something that you aspire to as yet?
No. The only ambition I've ever had, really, since the 60s is to not have any ambition. Because I think, in a way, ambition is one of the things that gets in the way. I think
Explain that a little bit, because people could say, well, it's all very well for him there.
Yes, I know, but it's like... well, how to explain it? Basically, we are all souls in bodies. And the reason, what I think, the reason why we're in the body, because people always say, oh, you know, we're going to all die, and we don't know what causes death and that, but death is, the cause of death is birth. So it should make people really think, well, if we don't want to die then, we've got to not get born, right? And so how do you not get born? Well, then it starts getting deeper and deeper, because then you get into this thing of reincarnation, and as, you know,
Do you subscribe to that, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. And as Christ said, whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. And Bob Dylan said, look out, kid, it's something you did, God knows when, but you're doing it again. It's that thing that every action, you know, what we are now is based upon our past actions, and what we are going to be is based on our actions now. So we can always improve and we can always change. And so I think the idea being that we're put in this body because the body has senses. Through our senses, we gain experience. Through experience, we gain knowledge, and through knowledge, hopefully, we liberate ourselves from going round and round and round in the Memphis Blues again, in circles, which is birth, death, birth, death,
Right.
birth, death, birth, death. So, ambition. So the only real ambition should be
What peace of soul?
to get to know who am I and where am I going. And that ambition to develop love of God. And that's the only real ambition. All other ambitions, you know, we all need to make a living and make food and take care of our children, and, you know, that's obvious. We need to have fun and things in life, but the prime reason, the only reason we're actually in these bodies is to learn and develop love of God and liberate our souls from all this round and round, the Memphis Blues.
Do you think you'll come back again?
Well, by the look of things, I probably will have to, but I'd like to give it a pass one of these incarnations.
What do you think you might be?
No
Or what
idea.
would you choose if you could have any say in it?
I absolutely wouldn't be famous.
Would you not?
I think I've fulfilled that desire. See, there's another thing, we all have desires. And to liberate yourself too, you have to fulfill the desire or get rid of the desire. Somewhere down the line, I presume, I had the desire to be famous, but never again. Got rid of that one.
If there's anything you could change, looking back, if there's anything you could change, is there anything specific
You mean
in your life so far?
just in this sort of...
in this time round?
Well, I don't know. I suppose I should have... maybe the only thing that changed is the record royalties we got from EMI.
Okay. What would, final question here, George, in the BPFO. What would you like folk to remember George Harrison for?
I don't know. I don't know. Just as somebody who is not bad. Not that bad.
Okay, that'll do.
Oh, that'll do, yeah.
Okay, George
Okay.
Harrison for talking to us. Thanks very much.
Thanks. And nice to talk to you all. Goodbye.